Coming up on Mountain News this morning, polls everywhere about to open. Our WYMT Election Day coverage begins. And early voting is playing a big role in this year's election as many Kentuckians opted to participate last weekend.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Our time is now 5:59, and today is Tuesday, Election Day, November the 5th. Let's check in now with meteorologist Megan Usmall and check us out with this forecast. Megan, how's it going today?
It's going absolutely great today, and we're going to continue to see an absolutely great day shape up. So happy Election Day. Go out to the polls and enjoy this weather too. As we look at that satellite and radar, you can see we're starting off the nice and clear weather this morning with just a little bit of clouds in our area, but we're staying mostly clear for the next couple of hours, and those current temperatures even are looking absolutely wonderful. We're in that 50s range with some places hitting that 60-degree mark. So if you're like me, you might need a nice cardigan, but overall, you're definitely not going to need a jacket as you're heading into those afternoon temperatures, because we are seeing some very warm temperatures for the month of November. We're seeing those upper 70s, and in some places seeing that 80-degree mark and potentially even passing it. So definitely a warm day today. And as we're going through the next couple of hours for your Election Day, we're going to continue to see those clear skies, a little bit of clouds popping up around 6 p.m. when the polls close, with a nice gradual increase in temperature, 82 degrees at that 3 p.m. hour. Jim?
Megan, thanks. Yes, it is November. Do not adjust your calendars. The 80s are there. It is Election Day. It's finally here, and so begins WYMT's Election Day coverage. We'll start with the race for the White House. Last night, the candidates, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, made their final pitches to the voters after a multi-day blitz through the seven battleground states that could decide the outcome of the 2024 election. Jared Hill with CBS News is in Alexandria, Virginia, with more.
An Election Day tradition, the tiny town of Dixville, Knox, New Hampshire, with the first results of the 2024 race. The 6 voters split between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris in what's proving to be a razor-thin election. In Grand Rapids, Michigan,
are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Trump, revisiting his final campaign stop from 2016 and 2020, had the last word with a late-night rally after stumping through North Carolina and Pennsylvania.
As your president, I will fight for you every single day with every breath in my body.
Are you ready to make your voices heard?
Harris went all in on Pennsylvania, closing out a multi-stop tour of the state with star-studded concert rallies in Pittsburgh, then from the base of the famous Rocky Steps at the Philadelphia Art Museum.
I pledge to always put country above party and self, and to be a president for all Americans.
Already more than 81 million Americans have voted early this election, with states like Georgia and North Carolina shattering records. Still, a lot of folks say they plan to vote today.
I want to do mine in person because I know it counts.
I'm old school, so I wanted to vote on the day of, as I normally do.
Trump is also expected to cast his ballot later today in Florida. Tonight, he and running mate J.D. Vance will watch the results come in at Mar-a-Lago. Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, will be in Washington, D.C. at Harris's alma mater, Howard University. Jared Hill, CBS News, Alexandria, Virginia.
Tonight, CBS News will have complete election coverage from our headquarters in New York, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern on our CBS 24/7 streaming channel, and starting at 7 p.m. Eastern here on the CBS television network. Here at WYMT, we'll be keeping a close eye on local races and more. First, let's take a look at the historic 29th District State Senate race. Following the unexpected death of Senator Johnny Turner, 11 candidates filed as write-in candidates. The district includes Bell, Floyd, Harlan, Knott, and Letcher counties. Each ballot will need to be hand-counted due to the write-in element. Officials with the Kentucky Secretary of State's office say they anticipate the votes will be counted on election night. You can learn more about the candidates on our website. Some Kentucky voters will also vote on medical cannabis, alcohol sales, and various other local races. There are also potential changes to the state's constitution. If approved, Amendment 2 would give state lawmakers the power to use tax money on education options that are not public schools. Supporters say it could expand access to other education options like private schools. Critics say that money generated from taxes should be used to improve public schools. Amendment 1 is also on the Kentucky ballot. It would add one line to the constitutional provision for voting rights, explicitly stating that, quote, no person who is not a citizen of the United States shall be allowed to vote in this state. Supporters say it eliminates any gray area on who is or who is not allowed to vote in Kentucky. Lawmakers who oppose the amendment say it's not needed because the state does not have an issue with non-citizens voting. Now, we continue to highlight some of the more prominent races in eastern Kentucky. Here's another one. This is the battle for Commonwealth's attorney for the 47th Judicial Circuit. Former Commonwealth's attorney Edison Banks, who had retired, will take on the incumbent Matthew Butler. The 47th Judicial Circuit consists of Letcher County. Commonwealth's 47th Judicial Circuit, Edison Banks and Matt Butler. And in the battle for state representative in the 84th District, Chris Fugit, who is the incumbent and a pastor, will square off against Democrat Zach Hall. The 84th District consists of Perry, Owsley, and Breathitt counties. State Representative 84th District Chris Fugit and Zach Hall. Another race in our viewing area is in Rockcastle County. The battle for mayor in Livingston is taking place. That features Lawrence Thayer Jr. against Sandy Singleton. Livingston Mayor Rockcastle County, Lawrence Thayer Jr. and Sandy Singleton. Early voting went very smoothly in Kentucky, and it should result in fewer long lines on Election Day. That's according to Secretary of State Michael Adams. Adams says nearly 800,000 Kentuckians have already went out and voted, either absentee or during the no-excuse early voting period. Adams says his crew did not receive any complaints in Frankfort about problems or equipment malfunctioning. He says people have been able to vote for their candidate of their choice.
In Laurel County, we had one voter who had trouble following instructions and correctly operating a ballot marking device. She confirmed that she was able to vote for the candidate of her choice and her vote was counted. She didn't put that in her TikTok video, unfortunately.
Adams says if you are voting for a write-in candidate today, it's very important to fill in the bubble indicating that you are voting write-in, then proceed to write in the name of the candidate. Now let's take a look at where to vote and how. You can vote as long as you're in line at your voting location by 6 p.m. when the polls close. Your voting location is based on the voting precinct where you live. If you do not know where your voting location is, you can check online. Secretary of State Michael Adams urges people who are voting by mail to return their ballot to a secure drop box given to their county clerk.
The safest thing is to use the drop box. Number one, it's quicker because we get it immediately instead of having to wait for the mail to run. Number two, they're more secure.
All in all, mail ballots have to be received by 6 p.m. today when the polls close. Otherwise, they will not be counted. Groups throughout Lexington are encouraging people to get out and vote. Members of the League of Women Voters and the group advocacy-based Lived Experience want to improve voter turnout in Kentucky. They say the majority of registered voters never go to the polls. Advocates say they're working to educate people on how to vote and the importance of their voice.
The more that we feel connected to our communities, the less likely we are to create harm in our community, right? So it's that sense of belonging, that purpose that we have, that we go out and we share those things.
You'll need a photo ID to vote. That could be your driver's license, passport, or even student ID. You can bring a note card into the voting booth too. People with disabilities can bring someone to help or ask a poll worker for assistance. All eyes are on today's presidential election, and not just here in the United States. Officials in Ukraine are tracking the election especially close to see how the outcome may impact ongoing U.S. support in the war with Russia. The U.S. has supplied Ukraine with more than $60 billion in military assistance since Russia invaded in 2022. While Vice President Kamala Harris has pledged to keep supporting Ukraine's defense, former President Donald Trump says he will not keep the aid coming. He has said he can end the war, quote, in 24 hours, end quote, if he's elected, though he has not said just how.
as a human rights advocate supporting the Ukrainian people.
I would just say to the American people and the future American president that they should really need to spend more time understanding who the people of Ukraine are, what the people of Ukraine are fighting for.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has not endorsed a U.S. presidential candidate. He said he will be keeping a close eye on the election. Ukrainian forces are losing ground in eastern Ukraine faster than they have in years. Russia now occupies about 20% of the country. And a reminder, polls open at 6 a.m., already open, and close by 6 p.m. today here in Kentucky. Voters will need to bring a valid ID to the polls. And if you're in line to vote by 6 p.m., you will be allowed to vote. You can report any election law violations to the voter fraud hotline, 800-328-VOTE. More election coverage begins with Mountain News this morning. When the polls open, they are open. Then join us later this evening at 5:30, 6, 7, and 11 for coverage throughout the region. We'll also have updates throughout the night during CBS News coverage, and you can find results as we get them on WYMT.com and the WYMT News app.
The polls are opening, and if you're heading to the polls right now, you're in luck. It's quite warm for this time of year, quite warm in general. We're looking in those 50s, so you might need like a light cardigan or a light jacket, but you're definitely not going to need that as you're heading into the afternoon hours, because those high temperatures will be getting quite warm. We're going to see the upper 70s. In some places, we'll see that 80-degree mark hit and surpassed. 81 for both Jackson and Pikeville as the forecasted high, and 82 if you are in Prestonsburg. So definitely going to be a warm day. And as you're going through the next couple hours, if you want to download that WYMT First Alert weather app, you can get information like the hour-by-hour forecast. And that's where you can see the breakdown of a nice and sunny day shaping out with nice and warm temperatures to accompany it. I'll have your ARH 7-day forecast in just a couple of minutes. Jim?
Megan, thank you. And thank you for joining us for Mountain News this morning. More news is on the way. Just ahead, asthma can be a lifelong battle, but sometimes the weather has a part to play in how it affects your body.
So no